Thank you for coming here today, and as we continue the important dialogue on the water challenges we face in Nevada and the greater Intermountain West. I chose the spot that we're standing here today for a reason. I had the opportunity to visit this state park about a week ago, and as I saw the boat ramp, I think for all of us it was very stark. And for those of us that have grown up here and recall the days when you would launch your boat from 30 feet away and be able to wade around in the water. I mean, where we're all standing right now, we should be standing in 3 feet of water. And if you look behind me, I think there are some children or family out there. That's a half a mile approximately from here where the nearest water is. And out there is probably where it was at one time 10 to 12 feet deep of water. So obviously where we stand now is replaced by dust. Across Nevada, unusable boat ramps, barren ski slopes, struggling farmers, and dwindling reservoirs continue to serve as a stark reminder of the importance of our most precious natural resource, water. It is no secret that Nevada is in the midst of a severe drought. This situation demands strong leadership and a united coalition to plan, prepare, and act. It demands that communities, industries, scientists, non-governmental organizations, and local, state, and federal agencies work together to ensure that our Nevada family is able to thrive. Communities across Nevada have been dealing with dry conditions for a very long time. We are and have always been the driest state in the nation. In recent years, under the leadership of many who join me today, we have managed to sustain our continued population growth and allow for a good quality of life for all Nevadans. But in the face of additional uncertainty about what the future may hold, it's important that we come together to be sure that we be prepared for what's next. Drought affects all Nevadans, every one of us, and we must work together to ensure a path for sustainability for future generations. And so today, will be signing an executive order that will establish the Nevada Drought Forum. It will bring together some of the best minds in the scientific, conservation, government, and industry sectors to ensure that Nevada's path forward is clear. The forum will provide an opportunity for all Nevadans, urban and rural, north and south, to come together to help address this most critical challenge. The Drought Forum will consist of members of local water municipalities, state government, higher education, and climate experts. Many join me today, and others will be intimately involved in the process here as well. The forum will also call for affected industries, communities, and local and federal partners to join in the conversation. Last year, as chairman of the Western Governors Association, I convened the Western Governors Drought Forum. Through this effort, governors, along with scientific experts and a multitude of industry and community stakeholders, met several times across the West in several different states to share information and build a consensus around solutions that may help our entire region. This June, at the Western Governors meeting up at Lake Tahoe, we will release the final report from that initiative, which will help identify best practices and next steps that will help guide our collective efforts across the West. The Nevada Drought Forum will build off that work. We face great uncertainty, and there is much work to be done. But working together, I am confident that we can identify measured and meaningful steps toward addressing this drought and securing Nevada's future for generations to come. Before I introduce our water experts and those individuals that work on this issue for another day, I guess I'd like to just briefly comment, some of the meetings that I've had on this issue. I had the opportunity to meet with some of the farmers, and you talk to them and they are not getting any water even as we speak, and they don't know where their water is going to come from, and their livelihoods are at stake. Any of you that have visited or flown over Lake Mead have seen that rim around that. This is something, if you drive by Lahontan Reservoir or Rye Patch, all of it is, this is emblematic of what we are confronting here. I know many of the media here is going to think or try to compare this to California. This is not California. And I feel like we're way ahead of this, and what California is doing, and some of our experts will talk about this, are things that we've been doing for many, many years. And so this is not reactive to what Governor Brown has done, but I do obviously compliment him and applaud him for doing what he's doing. But Nevada is different, and I feel really good about this drought forum that we're putting together so that we can establish the roadmap and have those best practices and what we can do that will help Nevadans the best. So with that, I'd like to introduce 3 representatives who have led the state in protecting our greatest natural resource. John Ensminger is General Manager of the Southern Nevada Water Authority. SNWA has one of the most aggressive and progressive water conservation programs in the United States. They have served as a model for best practices, and we welcome SNWA's and Mr. Ensminger's input as the largest water purveyor in the state. And one of the stories I like to tell that I learned from Mr. Ensminger with regard to the conservation efforts in Southern Nevada is that they're actually using less water now than they were 20 years ago, despite all of that growth. And I really admire and respect what they've accomplished down there, and their recapture, I believe, and again, John, I hope I'm not misquoting you, but I believe they recapture 95% of the municipally used water, somewhere in that regard. So it's absolutely remarkable. So we're very blessed to have his assistance in this effort. Mark Foray is General Manager of the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. Tumwa and many northern Nevada municipalities have taken proactive measures already to stay ahead of this issue. They recently took an important step to ensure sustainability for our entire region in northern Nevada, asking northern Nevadans to cut their water use by 10%. And finally, Leo Drozdoff, Director of the Nevada Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. He provides leadership for the state agencies that continue to manage and protect all of our precious resources in Nevada. DCNR brings to the table a wealth of experience, expertise, and authority, including at the Division of Water Resources, Division of Forestry, and Division of Environmental Protection. I did want to do one shout out to Jason King, who is our state water engineer, who probably has one of the most difficult jobs in state government. He's had to make some extremely difficult and unpopular decisions, but he has made those decisions in what he feels is in the best interest of the people of this state and to manage this very precious resource. So I wanted to publicly acknowledge you, Jason, for your hard work and commitment. So with that, if you would please join me in welcoming John Ensminger, Mark Foray, and Leo Drozdoff. After they finish speaking, I will sign the executive order. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Gentlemen.
Well, thank you, Governor Sandoval. The Southern Nevada Water Authority provides water service on a daily basis to 2 million Nevadans that call home. And on behalf of those 2 million Nevadans, I would like to thank Governor Sandoval for taking a leadership role in an issue that is of paramount importance, not only to all Nevadans, but to all of the United States, all of the Intermountain West. As the governor mentioned, this drought is not a partisan issue. This drought is not a north-south issue. This drought is not an urban versus rural issue. This drought is something that touches every single Nevadan every single day. What we've been living with in the south is really the drought in the Rocky Mountains. 2 million people in southern Nevada rely for 90% of their water supply from the Colorado River, which has its headwaters in the Rockies. And the Rockies have been experiencing a 1 percentile drought over the last 1,200 years. If you look back over the last 1,200 years, only 1% of the time have we seen a drought of the magnitude that the Rocky Mountains are experiencing right now. So we've been living this for the last 15 years. We've been adapting for the last 15 years. And as the governor mentioned, the results of those adaptation and mitigation measures has been that today, southern Nevada is using 40% less water than we were just 15 years ago. And that overlaps in the same time period with that 15 years when our population increased by 25%. So I do believe that Nevada is a poster child, if you will, for the rest of the nation. We have shown that you can grow your economy and use less water. And the rest of the West, the rest of parts of the world are beginning to learn that lesson, and they're looking at us as a model for how to move forward. In addition to conserving water, our citizens have also stepped up to build additional infrastructure. We have spent or will spend close to $1.5 billion to install a new third intake into Lake Mead and to install lower, deeper pumps that will ensure that we can access our community's water supply even in the worst case conditions. So I applaud the citizens of Nevada to have the foresight to move forward with these necessary infrastructure projects. With all that being said, my message today would be this is no time to rest on our laurels. This is no time to think that we've reached the point of diminishing returns and that there's not more that can be done. And because of that, I think today is the perfect juncture for Governor Sandoval to have shown the leadership of coming forward with this executive order. He mentioned some of the other executive orders, some of the other actions that have been taken in other states. Nevada's been doing things. We are not at the point right now where we're in an emergency because we've been proactive for a decade and a half. But at this juncture, with this order, we now have the opportunity to move forward in a smart way, in a pragmatic way, in a very methodical way to see what has worked and what more can be done. And this executive order with the establishment of the Drought Forum, in my opinion, is the perfect tool to bring together that expertise, to come up with that roadmap, to figure out what those additional actions need to be. So with that, I'm committed to working with the other members of the forum. Some of them I know extremely well, Leo Drozdoff, Jason King. Some of them I haven't had the pleasure of meeting and working with yet, but we've seen the timelines. We think they're achievable, and our goal is to bring real-world, pragmatic solutions to the governor by the end of this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor Sandoval, for allowing Truckee Meadows Water Authority to be a part of this important discussion. We're also known as TUMWA. I'd like to talk just a little bit about our state of our water supply in the Truckee Meadows and some of the things that we're doing at TUMWA in response to the drought. So in terms of municipal water supply for the Truckee Meadows, where do we stand? How bad is it? We've just had 4 very poor consecutive years of snowpack, including this past year, which was the lowest on record. However, in terms of reservoir levels, we've been here before and worse. In this region, all you have to do is look at the water level of Lake Tahoe at any given time, and you can get a good picture of what our water supply is like. When Tahoe's water level is below the rim, the natural rim, no water is flowing into the Truckee at Tahoe City. During the longest drought on record, which was from 1987 to 1994, Tahoe was below the rim for 4.5 years out of a 5-year period. As John and the governor said before, we plan for these things. We live in a desert. we plan for these kind of conditions. Truckee Meadows Water Authority plans for a 9-year dry cycle, which is equal to the worst drought on record, plus another dry year. So where we stand now in terms of Tahoe level, 6 months ago Tahoe fell below the rim. We're currently about 2.5 inches below the rim at this time. Are we in the worst drought on record at this time? No, we're not. Not at this time. Could this become the worst drought on record? It's possible. Too hard to tell right now. Next year we'll have a much better idea of that. So this summer, with the meager snowpack, we are not expecting really any flow into the Truckee from Tahoe this year. The lake's just not going to come up enough to provide really any flow into the Truckee. When other natural flows in the river diminish, probably in late May or early June, Tumwa will start using our upstream and underground drought reserves to meet customer demands. That is why the Tumwa Board of Directors has supported the call for customers to reduce their water use by at least 10% throughout the entire irrigation season. We're confident that our community will respond and help us achieve our goal of saving 5,000 acre-feet of water this spring and summer, which will be important for next year should drought conditions continue. The Truckee Meadows region is very fortunate to have substantial community-owned drought reserves in Independence and Donner Lakes. We also have water stored under a federal contract in Stampede Reservoir that was not available during the 87 to 94 drought. The good news is that our upstream drought reserves are almost full, with nearly the same amount of water we had this time last year. Some of the other things that Truckee Meadows Water Authority is doing, we are currently working with the state of Nevada on low interest funding through the state revolving loan program to construct a $17 million pipeline to further integrate the Fish Springs Ranch water supply into our North Valley system. This water supply comes from an underground source 40 miles north of Reno and currently extends to the north end of Lemon Valley. This resource was not available in the 87 to 94 drought. And I'd like to commend the state because that state revolving fund program that they run is, I think, one of the best in the country, if not the best. We're also working with the state to expand our already extensive aquifer storage and recovery program to many more wells in the region. Many wells that have recently been added from the recent consolidation of the former Washoe County Water Utility and South Truckee Meadows GID into Tumwa. This program recharges treated surface water into the underground aquifer in the winter months when we have excess water in the river. This winter alone, we've recharged over 800 million gallons in the underground aquifer. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we are working with the state of Nevada, the state of California, the United States, and the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe to implement the Truckee River Operating Agreement this year, or TROA. TROA is a different way of operating the river system that will provide multiple benefits for river users. The most significant benefit for the Truckee Meadows region is that over time, it will more than double our upstream drought storage. For now, we're confident that our customers will respond positively to our request to reduce water use by at least 10%, helping us to successfully navigate through the current dry period. We've been doing assigned day watering here for about 20 or 25 years. So based on some of the prior comments, we are quite a bit different. We live in a desert. We're used to that. We plan for that. And we've been doing this for a very long time. And with that, thank you very much for having me.
Good afternoon, everyone. I really want to thank you all for being here. I think clearly the level of attendance shows how important this issue is. As the governors and John and Mark have stated, the profound issue of drought impacts all Nevadans. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the work that's being done by our department, some of which has been mentioned, but also conclude with some of the opportunities that I believe will be realized as a result of Governor Sandoval's Drought Forum. Two of the divisions within the Department are Water Resources, also referred to as the State Engineer's Office, and the Division of Forestry. As the Governor said, Jason King, the State Engineer, is here. I also want to call out Bob Roper, who's the State Forester, and somewhere running around here is Eric Johnson, who is the State Parks Administrator. And of course, the drought has a profound impact on parks and tourism and economic impacts as well. The Division of Water Resources, under Jason's leadership, conducted a series of listening sessions throughout the state last year. The concerns about drought and how to manage it while still relying on Nevada water law, which has been in place for over 100 years, were extensively discussed. We certainly plan to utilize those key findings out of those listening sessions during the Nevada Drought Forum. In addition, we're witnessing significant groundwater level declines in certain basins throughout the state. Left unchecked, these basins will not be sustainable. There's just no two ways about it. So we do need to find ways to balance economic and ecological realities. During the last legislative session, the Division of Forestry launched its Wildland Fire Program. That program's approach is to better manage against wildfire risks throughout the state by having resources pre-positioned and working on fire suppression, or basically putting out fires, and then revegetation throughout the year, so it's not a seasonal program. So while it's a relatively new program, NDS Wildland Fire Program is another tool to better manage the state's resources in this time of drought. I'd like to pivot a little bit now and talk about opportunities. As you could tell, I'm very excited that the governor has called for this effort. I think it's exactly what's needed, and I'm even more excited to be a part of it. I believe by putting this knowledgeable group together, we'll find opportunities to better handle drought and identify any existing barriers that may lead to more efficient water use. Mark mentioned the State Revolving Fund, which is actually run out of another agency within the Department, the Division of Environmental Protection. We're very pleased that it's been received well. But I'll give you an example of some of the work that DEP's done. More than 20 years ago, I was actually involved in DEP's development of the state's wastewater effluent reuse program. And again, at the time, it was lauded as being a model. It was taking water that, at 25 years ago, nobody was really talking about reuse, but we were. However, we weren't in a time of drought, and public acceptance of reuse or treated wastewater was a challenge. So as a result, in a way to build a level of comfort with people and communities, we put a fair amount of restrictions about where reused water can be used. And while those restrictions, I think, were appropriate at the time, and it gave the public some confidence that we were doing the right thing, those are the kind of things that frankly warrant revision and a new look and taking a look at, are these really what we need now 20 years later in times of drought? And I'm confident that there's going to be many of these other opportunities that we can come across and do a better job with. So I want to close with some undeniable realities. The work that we have in front of us won't be easy, but this is a Nevada community, the Nevada family, as the governor says, and we must work together. We're all going to have to give a little bit, but we have to do that in order to benefit the state and all of its citizens, which we're here to serve. And so I do want to get out of the governor's way and allow him to sign the executive order. I do know that there are a number of folks that are going to be part of this effort that are here, and we're certainly available to talk with you as you'd like. But that.
Thank you. Thanks, Lee. So this will be Executive Order 2015-03. It is an order establishing the Nevada Drought Forum. And I'm not going to read through the whole thing because it's pretty extensive, but I think you're probably curious as to who the members of this Drought Forum are going to be. But it will be comprised of the following appointees: the Director of the Nevada Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, the Director of the Nevada Department of Agriculture, the State Engineer of the Nevada Division of Water Resources, the Chief of the Nevada Division of Emergency Management, the Nevada State Climatologist, the Dean of the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension, a representative of the Desert Research Institute, a representative of the Southern Nevada Water Authority, and all other members that I deem necessary. So I think you'll see that there'll be a very good cross-section in terms of those that are interested, that have an interest in the outcome and the strategies that are developed as a result of this order. And I'm going to give a public invitation for anybody when that first hearing is set, because it will be a public meeting pursuant to the open meeting law, so that anybody who comes will be able to present their concerns and offer their assistance in that regard. It is all hands on deck. And I truly appreciate these gentlemen being here today to have this type of expertise and experience brought to bear. I think, again, Nevada is going to lead in this regard. We are not starting from zero. I believe that we do have a head start here, and we're going to build on that and actually capitalize on some of the strategies and the successes that we've had in the past. So with that, I'm very proud to sign this executive order. Thank you.